Chapter 8. It was a quiet afternoon. The ambassador had been traveling for a week, and the house was nearly empty except for a handful of people. Most of the staff had taken the opportunity to take a few days off, and there was hardly anything to do. Aaron wandered through the corridors, his eyes routinely scanning for any irregularities, even though he knew that skipping his rounds wouldn't make much of a difference. But then he heard footsteps from the upper floor. Aaron stopped, his senses immediately sharpened. Apart from him, Jeff, Emily, and her friend Allison, no one was supposed to be in the house. Jeff was in the office, and the girls were sunbathing by the pool. He rested his hand on the weapon at his hip, just in case, and slowly ascended the spiral staircase. Each step was silent, his eyes scanning the area as he reached the top step. Emily suddenly appeared in his field of vision, and Aaron subtly let go of his weapon. However, she noticed the movement and smirked mockingly. Shooting the ambassador's daughter probably wouldn't go over well, Emily remarked dryly before disappearing through the door of the small storage room at the end of the hallway. Aaron followed her slowly, leaning against the door frame with his arms crossed. "I thought you were downstairs at the pool with Miss Banks," he said calmly. Emily didn't look at him, rummaging through a bag instead. "Are you watching me?" she asked snappishly. She paused mid-movement and looked at Aaron. "Of course you are. It's your job, so you can breathe easy." Aaron took a deep breath, realizing that he had actually been holding it. "Are you going somewhere?" he asked when his gaze fell on a suitcase. Emily shot him a look, raising an eyebrow. "Because I have a suitcase? Wow, you're sharp. You can really tell you trained at Quantico." Aaron remained calm, unimpressed by her tone, letting her speak. Emily stared at him for a moment, but Aaron held her gaze. Eventually, she turned away, her shoulders slightly slumping. Aaron remained in the doorway, his arms loosely crossed, watching Emily. She pulled one bag after another from the shelf, hastily inspecting them before tossing them aside. She did the same with the suitcases she dragged from a corner. None seemed to satisfy her. Her movements were restless but not frantic, as if she was searching for something without knowing exactly what. "Everything okay?" Aaron finally asked, his voice calm but carrying a hint of concern. He didn't let her apparent nervousness unsettle him, but he observed her reactions carefully. Emily froze, her hand still gripping the handle of a suitcase. Slowly, she turned to face him, an exaggeratedly bright smile plastered on her lips. "Of course," she said with unnecessary cheerfulness. "Everything's fine. I'm just spontaneously flying to my father's for the weekend. I just can't decide. Bag or suitcase, that's the real question, you know?" Aaron raised an eyebrow, letting her words sink in before speaking in the same calm voice. "That doesn't seem like the real problem." Emily blinked, as if she hadn't expected him to respond so directly. For a brief moment, she seemed to consider whether to confide in him, but instead, she abruptly straightened up and changed the subject. "How do you like working here?" she asked, leaning against the edge of a suitcase. "The other guys are treating you well, I hope? Grayson can sometimes be, well, Grayson." Aaron let her change the subject, even though he knew it was just a diversion. "I like the job," he replied evenly. "And the others are fine. Everyone has their quirks, but I get along with them. Grayson is strict, but I respect that. It's easier when you know where you stand." Emily nodded slowly, as if weighing his words. "That's good. I mean, working here is unique. By the way, Grayson likes you. He said you're someone people can rely on." Aaron raised an eyebrow slightly, but his tone remained unchanged. "That's a compliment. And you? Are you okay?" Emily's smile faded for a brief moment, and her posture suddenly tensed. But just as quickly, she put her perfect smile back on. "Yeah, sure, everything's good. My father will surely be happy to see me." Erin remained silent for a moment, watching as she averted her gaze and turned back to the scattered suitcases. However, her movements were slower now, less aimless than before. You know, you're almost as serious as Grayson. Have I mentioned that before? You have, Erin replied calmly, and I don't see what's wrong with that. Emily turned to face him, studying him for a moment as if evaluating his words. It's not a bad thing, she finally said matter-of-factly. Grayson is reliable and has been there for me for half my life, and that's not something to take for granted here. Erin nodded slightly. Sometimes it's good to have someone you can count on, but the same goes for you. If something's wrong, you know you don't have to handle it alone, right? Emily avoided his gaze and pulled another bag from the shelf. I really need to make a decision, she muttered, holding the bag for a moment before putting it back down. Bag or suitcase? What do you think? Erin let her have her distraction. That depends on what's more important to you, comfort or flexibility. Emily smirked. You're annoyingly practical, you know that? Maybe, Erin replied calmly. Erin was still leaning against the door frame when Emily's phone suddenly rang. The ringtone was different than usual, not the cheerful song she normally used, but a monotonous, almost businesslike tone. Erin's eyebrow lifted slightly as he noticed the brief expression on Emily's face. She froze, her movements coming to an abrupt halt, as if someone had pressed pause. Her previously exaggeratedly relaxed demeanor vanished, replaced by sudden tension, visible in her posture and the slight press of her lips. Slowly, she pulled her phone from her pocket, glanced at the display, and turned to Erin. Her expression was a mix of nervousness and something that almost looked like defiance. I have to go until Monday. Emily's tone suddenly sounded unnaturally serious, and not only that, she seemed to have completely switched off her usual lighthearted manner. Erin watched as she walked toward the door without taking a bag or suitcase. Her movements were tense, almost as if she were heading into battle. Erin stood there for a moment longer before slowly making his way back, and as he wandered back to the security office, he couldn't help but wonder if he should tell Grayson about this. Or more importantly, what exactly he would even tell him. What had just happened?